I thought it would be useful to show you kind of the process that I would recommend going through as you hit each individual exercise. So we're going to start with the styling exercise in React Fundamentals. So what I recommend you do is you first run the intro video so I can introduce the problem and the exercise to you, and I kind of go through some of the background in here, but I recommend that you read that yourself. So please do read through that. So we're going to come over here, and I actually do have the app up and running. So I'll go to localhost 3000, we'll pop open the styling exercise, and then you'll read through all of this information, maybe click on some of these links to some documentation, whatever else that you need to get an idea of what's possible here, and then read through the exercise so you get an idea of what our actual purpose is here. And then I'm going to suggest that you open the exercise on an isolated page. So we'll pull that out, and I'm going to stick it side by side with my code editor right here. So we're going to make this big screen, and we'll make this big screen. We'll stick those side by side. And here we'll move this right next to my the video here. And then we'll just drag this, if I can get that to work right there. There we go. So we'll drag that over. And now I'll open up 05.js. I'm also going to open up 05 in the test and switch from final to exercise. I'll open up my terminal right here and run npmt to get the test up and running. And then I can use this if I want to. I can use this if I want to. I'll just hide that for now. Hopefully you have a little bit more real estate on your screen for that kind of a workflow. But then we're going to be making, we're going to make all of our changes in this file, and we'll see those changes reflected on the right side. I also recommend that you have the DevTools open, so I'm going to put those at the bottom. And we'll want maybe the Elements tab with our console right here as well. So that should give you a pretty good view into everything that's happening in the browser as you're running through this stuff. And so we're going to have the video on this side. We watch that intro, and before we watch the solution, then you want to actually work through this problem. So we'll come over here, we'll read what Marty and Cody the Koala Bear want us to do. We'll work through it as much as we can. We'll say, okay, so Cody says we need to add a class name prop. We'll pass a box right there. We'll save that. We'll see that this gets updated. Awesome. And if we look at the DOM right here, we'll see, oh, okay, so there's the box. And then we also need a box small. And okay, awesome. And you can also look at the imports and see, oh, we've got a CSS file that, that didn't go to that definition. We've got a CSS file that we want to have open. And so we'll go to box styles, and oh, okay, so here are all the styles that we have. And so we're ready to rock and roll, finish up this exercise. And once you're finished, or once you've decided, okay, I'm done, then you actually you can kind of choose your own adventure. You can either continue on to our extra credits that you have here and just blaze through all of these extra credits, which, by the way, there is no starting point for the extra credits, and the extra credits are also way less hand-holdy. And that's actually intentional. The extra credits are just like, hey, what about this additional problem? Maybe there's another thing that we want to deal with here. See if you can figure that out. So it's intentionally a little hand-holdy, and hopefully that's not too frustrating for you, but I think that it's a good experience for you to really struggle with this stuff. Learning is hard. And so you can either work through that extra credit on your own, or you can watch the solution and then you maybe finish up your solution, or you decide, oh, I'm just going to throw it all away, and we'll come over to the final. I'll grab this, copy that, and paste it in there. And now your solution looks just like mine. And then you can continue on to the extra credit. So you kind of have an option there, and you can do extra credit 1, then watch the video, extra credit 2, then watch the video, or you can do exercise and then all the extra credits and then watch all the videos. It's up to you, however you learn best. So with all of that said, there are a couple other things that I just want to make note of. Please do make sure you read all of the notes. You might have to Google things, and that's actually expected. This is hopefully kind of the idea is we land you into the job, and now it's your job to figure these problems out. That's the experience that we're trying to give to you. And then also, this just popped up, so actually I wanted to explain this as well. So you'll notice that popped up from this gear or these tools right here at the very bottom. So these are our dev tools, and we have these in all of the workshops. You can click on that to have it persist, or unclick to make it go away. And the dev tools give you a couple of things that you can do. They're not really relevant for lots of the exercises, but any of the exercises that are working with HTTP calls and things, you can actually change how long those HTTP calls take. They can have a variable amount of time. And so you can control that variable amount of time. And then you can actually also simulate request failures here, where you say, hey, I want my GET requests to /API/list item/list item ID. I want those to fail. So we're going to add that. And now the next time that we make a GET request to that URL, then that request is going to fail. So that can be useful to you in some of the exercises if you want to see, okay, what looks like, how do I make sure that this error boundary happens when there's a request failure, for example. So that's the workshop dev tools that you have that can be useful as you're working through some of these exercises as well. And another thing that I'm just going to recommend in general is make sure to take breaks as you're working through this stuff. Like, don't just sit down and expect you can go through all of this material. Each one of these workshops is at least 4 hours of just workshop time when I give it live. And I take breaks periodically as I'm giving that, and I strongly recommend that you take breaks as well. So do an exercise, work through that workshop material, and take a quick little break. And if you need a tip, then here's something that might kind of help you as you go through this. When I give my live workshops, I go to icanhasdadjoke.com. And this will just show you a random dad joke, which I think, like, they're just really bad puns. And skydiving's not for you. Oh my gosh. These are hilarious. I really enjoy these. And when I'm working through the live workshops, I show these to the attendees. So if you want that workshop experience, then I Can Has Dad Joke is for you. Go take a look at those. They're so funny. So once we've finished all of our extra credits and we're ready to move on to the next exercise, before you move on, I want you to scroll down here to the very bottom, and this is where you can click on this link. That will take you to the elaboration and feedback form. So this will be pre-filled with some of the information, and you'll notice that your email address should be pre-filled here as well, and that is what we got your email address for. And so we automatically added that email address to the link for all of the exercises so that you don't have to fill this out every single time. So here's the really important piece. This is why I want you to fill this out. It's the elaborate on what you learned. So there are a lot of things that with the way that I structure this workshop to ensure that this sticks for you, that you actually remember this. And elaborate on what you learned is one of those things, and it's actually a really important one. So I want you to write down some of the core concepts, like pretend that you're writing just a mini blog post about the thing that you just learned. And in fact, if you want to write an actual blog post about that, that would be awesome. So feel free to reference this material and be like, hey, there's that material on Epic React. I learned this thing and it was awesome. Totally welcome to do that. But if you don't want to make a full-on blog post, at least write down what you learned. It will help you remember what you learned. And then as a favor to me, you can provide also some ratings on how effective the exercise and the video instruction was for you, and give me some general comments about the exercise. And I do look at these and use these to make the workshop better. And so I do appreciate that. But really what's super important about this is for you to elaborate on what you learned. Now, you just go through every single one of these exercises, and once you finish and you get to the very end, then there's one last thing that I want to invite you to do, and that is in the repository right down here toward the bottom, you'll see we have this workshop feedback, and there's a link to a form where you can provide your feedback on the whole workshop. And this is 100% a favor to me. So you don't have to do this at all. It's not going to improve your learning necessarily or anything, but it is nice and I appreciate it. And if you want to reach out to me on Twitter and say, hey, Ken, I just finished this workshop. That's exciting. I totally welcome that. I would celebrate with you. Super happy to do that. So please do fill this out. Give me some feedback on how we can make these workshops better in the future. And with that, that's all that we got to do. Once you finish with that, then you're done. You can move on to the next workshop. You do the whole setup and clone and all that stuff, and you're ready to rock and roll. So I hope that is helpful to you. Have an awesome time working through this material, and we'll see you around epicreact.dev.